33. The skunk ape of the Everglades. Deep within the cypress swamps and sawgrass prairies of South Florida, a creature of pungent proportions is said to roam. Known as the skunk ape, this bipedal, hairy cryptid is the local cousin of Bigfoot, but with an olfactory signature that would make a swamp gas explosion seem pleasant. Sightings of this elusive beast date back decades, particularly in the Myakka River area, where residents have described a towering reddish-brown figure that moves with surprising grace through the thicket. Unlike other legendary monsters, the skunk ape is often associated with a distinct rotten egg stench that precedes its arrival. While skeptics might point to misidentified black bears or escaped orangutans, the sheer volume of reports and grainy photographs has turned the skunk ape into a cultural icon. It represents the untamed, mysterious heart of the Florida wilderness that remains largely inaccessible to the modern world. 32. The silent echoes of Rosewood. In the early days of January in 1923, a thriving African-American community in Levy County was erased from the map in a week of absolute terror. What began as a false accusation by a woman in the nearby town of Sumner escalated into a racially motivated massacre that saw the entire village of Rosewood burned to the ground. Families were forced to flee into the frigid winter swamps, hiding from mobs while the world they had built was systematically dismantled. For 60 years, a veil of silence hung over the tragedy, kept by survivors who feared retribution and perpetrators who wished to forget. It was not until the 1980s that journalists brought the story back to light, leading to a historic reparations bill in 1994. Today, only a single house remains, standing as a quiet monument to a lost town. 31. The fabled quest for the Fountain of Youth. Legend has it that Juan Ponce de Leon stepped onto the shores of Florida in 1513 not just to claim land for Spain, but to find a spring that would grant eternal vitality. While tourist brochures in St. Augustine still celebrate this mystical search, historians suggest the story was likely a bit of posthumous character assassination. The idea that a seasoned conquistador was gullible enough to chase magical water was popularized by his political rivals to make him look foolish. In reality, Ponce de Leon was likely more interested in gold, land, and the governorship of new territories. Regardless of his true intent, the legend of the Fountain of Youth has become inextricably linked with the Florida identity. It serves as a symbolic reminder of the human desire for renewal and the enduring hope that something miraculous waits just beyond the next mangrove island. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe and leave a like to keep discovering the strange and incredible history of our entire country. 30. The magnetic mystery of Coral Castle. In the town of Homestead stands a megalithic marvel that defies conventional explanation, built entirely by a single man named Edward Leedskalnin. Standing barely 5 feet tall and weighing just over 100 pounds, the Latvian immigrant spent 28 years quarrying and moving over 1,100 tons of coral rock. He worked mostly at night, under the cover of darkness, and claimed to have discovered the secrets of the pyramid builders. Without the use of modern machinery, Edward created a castle featuring a 9-ton revolving gate that could be moved with the push of a finger. He dedicated the structure to his sweet 16, a fiancée who had left him just before their wedding. When asked how he achieved such a feat, he simply stated that he understood the laws of weight and leverage. To this day, the site remains a testament to the power of unrequited love. 29. The Pirate Kingdom of Jose Gaspar. Every year, the city of Tampa is invaded by a crew of boisterous pirates in a festival that honors the legendary Jose Gaspar, also known as Gasparilla. The tale suggests that Gaspar was a Spanish nobleman who turned to piracy in the late 18th century, establishing a hidden base on the west coast of Florida. He was said to be the last of the buccaneers, a man of high culture and ruthless efficiency who accumulated a vast treasure before supposedly leaping to his death during a battle with the United States Navy in 1821. While historians find no contemporary records of his existence and suspect the legend was a clever marketing invention from the early 20th century, the story has achieved the status of truth through tradition. Gasparilla embodies the rebellious maritime spirit of the Gulf Coast, where every hidden cove feels like it could hold buried gold. 28. The Fury of the Labor Day Hurricane. In 1935, a storm of unprecedented ferocity descended upon the Florida Keys, forever changing the landscape and the lives of those in its path. This Labor Day hurricane remains one of the most intense tropical cyclones to ever make landfall in the United States, with a central pressure that bottomed out at 892 millibars. The storm produced a massive wall of water that swept across the low-lying islands, even derailing a rescue train that had been sent to evacuate World War I veterans working on a highway project. Hundreds of lives were lost in the chaos, and the sheer power of the wind was enough to strip the clothes from victims and sandblast the paint off cars. The tragedy led to significant changes in how the government handles emergency evacuations and stands as a sobering reminder of the raw, unpredictable power of the Atlantic. 27. The feathered residents of Key West. If you ever find yourself wandering the colorful streets of Key West, you will undoubtedly be greeted by the vocal residents of the island, the feral chickens. These birds are descendants of poultry brought by settlers from Cuba and the Caribbean for food and cockfighting. When the sport was banned and residents moved toward more modern grocery habits, the chickens were released into the wild, where they thrived in the tropical climate. Today, they are a protected part of the city's heritage, though their presence is a point of constant debate among locals. They roam freely through outdoor cafes and roost in banyan trees, their morning calls serving as a natural, if somewhat early, alarm clock for tourists. These gypsy chickens represent the quirky, untamed essence of the island, reminding everyone that in the Florida Keys, nature always finds a way to claim its space. 26. The defiant gravity of Spook Hill. In the quiet town of Lake Wales, there is a stretch of road that seems to operate under a different set of physical laws. Known as Spook Hill, this location has baffled drivers for generations because cars placed in neutral appear to roll uphill. Local legends suggest the phenomenon is tied to a fierce battle between a Native American chief and a massive alligator whose spirits still haunt the ridge. Another version claims it is the ghost of a pioneer woman whose wagon once lost its brakes here, while scientists explain the event as a clever optical illusion created by the surrounding landscape. The experience of feeling your vehicle defy gravity is undeniably eerie. It has become one of Florida's oldest and most beloved roadside attractions, proving that people will always find delight in a place where the world doesn't quite work the way it should. 25. The frigid bite of the Ash Wednesday storm. While Florida is known for its oppressive heat, the state has occasionally felt the icy grip of the north. In March of 1962, a massive extratropical weather system known as the Ash Wednesday storm battered the Atlantic coast. While the mid-Atlantic states bore the brunt of the destruction, Florida felt a significant impact as temperatures plunged to freezing levels as far south as the Everglades. The storm lingered through 5 high tides, causing severe coastal erosion and destroying oceanfront property. For a state built on the promise of eternal summer, the sight of frost and the sound of howling nor'easter winds was a terrifying departure from the norm. This event reshaped the coastline and forced a reevaluation of coastal development as the sea reclaimed land that had been thought secure. It remains a rare, chilling chapter in the history of the Sunshine State. 24. The Cursed Gaze of Robert the Doll. Housed within the thick limestone walls of the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West is a straw-filled doll that is widely considered one of the most haunted objects in the world. Robert the Doll was once the companion of Gene Otto, a young boy who received the toy in the early 20th century. According to local lore, Gene would often be heard talking to the doll, and his parents swore they heard a different voice answering back. Neighbors claimed to see the doll moving from window to window while the family was out. Today, Robert sits in a glass case, surrounded by thousands of letters from visitors who have written to apologize for disrespecting him. Legend says that those who take his photo without asking permission will be cursed with bad luck. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the atmosphere around Robert is undeniably heavy and strange. 23. The Tragic Spirits of St. Augustine Lighthouse. The St. Augustine Lighthouse is a stunning piece of maritime architecture, but its history is marked by a profound tragedy that occurred in 1873. During the construction of the new tower, the children of the lighthouse superintendent Hezekiah Pitti were playing on a railway cart used to haul materials. In a horrific accident, the cart broke loose and plunged into the water, trapping and drowning 3 young girls, Eliza and Mary Pitti, and another young girl whose name has been lost to time. Since that day, visitors and staff have reported hearing the sounds of children laughing and playing on the lighthouse grounds. Some claim to have seen a girl in a blue dress standing on the observation deck or wandering the woods nearby. These lingering echoes of a long ago afternoon serve as a poignant reminder of the human cost involved in building the Florida we know today. 22. The slithering shadows of the glades. In the heart of the Everglades, an invasive force is silently rewriting the rules of the ecosystem. The Burmese python, a giant of the serpent world, has established a breeding population that now numbers in the tens of thousands. These massive constrictors, some reaching lengths of over 20 feet, were originally exotic pets that were either released or escaped during hurricane events in the late 20th century. They are the apex predators of the swamp, capable of swallowing adult white-tailed deer, and even challenging large alligators in epic battles of strength. The presence of these snakes has led to a devastating decline in native mammal populations, turning the once noisy marshes into eerie, quiet corridors. State-sponsored bounty hunters now roam the sawgrass at night, using infrared technology to track these camouflaged invaders. It is a modern-day war for the very soul of the Florida wilderness. 21. The siren song of Weeki Wachee. Since 1947, a spring in Hernando County has been home to one of the most unique spectacles in the world, living mermaids. Weeki Wachee Springs is a natural marvel where over 117 million gallons of clear water bubble up from the earth every day. A former Navy man named Newton Perry saw the potential in this underwater theater, teaching young women to smile and perform ballet while breathing through hidden air hoses. In the mid-20th century, this attraction was so popular that even Elvis Presley stopped by to admire the aquatic grace. These performers must endure the constant 72-degree chill and the immense pressure of the current, which flows at 5 miles per hour. While the world outside has changed, the mermaids remain a symbol of mid-century Florida kitsch, proving that magic can be found in the depths of a spring. 20. The Greek legacy of the sponge docks. In the early 1900s, the town of Tarpon Springs was transformed from a sleepy riverside settlement into the sponge capital of the world. This transformation was sparked by John Kokoris, a Greek immigrant who realized that the Gulf of Mexico held a treasure trove of high-quality sponges. He brought over skilled divers from the Dodecanese islands of Greece, who introduced the use of heavy copper helmets and lead-soled boots to harvest the gold of the sea. These men risked their lives in the murky depths, facing the bends and shark encounters to bring back their porous prizes. The industry built a vibrant community that still celebrates its heritage today with the annual Epiphany celebration, where young men dive for a wooden cross. The scent of roasted lamb and the sight of traditional boats remind us that Florida was built on the sweat of global pioneers. 19. The ancient enigma of the Miami Circle. In 1998, a developer in downtown Miami uncovered something that stopped a multi-million-dollar apartment project in its tracks. Buried beneath the soil was a perfect circle, 38 feet in diameter, carved directly into the limestone bedrock. This site, now known as the Miami Circle, consists of 24 large basins and numerous smaller holes that once supported the structural posts of a massive building. Archaeologists believe it was constructed by the Tequesta Indians nearly 2,000 years ago, long before the first Spanish explorers arrived. The discovery challenged the narrative that pre-Columbian societies in Florida were merely nomadic hunters. Instead, it revealed a sophisticated culture capable of complex engineering and celestial alignment. Today, the circle sits in the shadow of glass skyscrapers, a silent ancient anchor in a city that is constantly reinventing itself and moving toward the future. 18. The western gaze of the Witch Grave. Deep within the historic Old City Cemetery of Tallahassee lies a tomb that has fueled local legends for over a century. The grave belongs to Elizabeth Budd Graham, a woman who died in 1889. What makes her final resting place so peculiar is that it is the only grave in the entire cemetery that faces west, contrary to the traditional Christian practice of facing east toward the rising sun. This unusual orientation, combined with the elaborate Gothic style of the monument and the cryptic poetry inscribed upon it, led many to believe she was a practicing witch. Rumors persisted that she was the White Witch of the city, beloved by some and feared by others. While family records suggest the orientation was simply a personal preference or a mistake by the Mason, the legend of the Tallahassee Witch continues to draw curious visitors. 17. The Giant Spirit of Gibsonton. For decades, the town of Gibsonton served as the winter home for the residents of the traveling carnival and circus circuits. Known affectionately as Gibtown, this community was uniquely designed to accommodate its extraordinary citizens. It was a place where Al the Giant and his wife, Jeannie the Half-Girl, ran the local post office and a popular restaurant. The town's zoning laws were famously relaxed, allowing residents to keep elephants in their backyards and practice their high-wire acts over the neighborhood streets. It was a sanctuary for people who spent their lives being stared at, providing them a place where they were the norm rather than the exception. Though the heyday of the sideshow has faded, the legacy of Gibsonton remains as a testament to the inclusive, eccentric spirit of Florida, where everyone, no matter how unique, can find a place to call home. 16. The Whispering Spirits of Casadaga. Nestled in the woods of Central Florida is a community unlike any other, the Casadaga Spiritualist Camp. Founded in 1894 by George Colby, a medium from New York, the camp has become the psychic capital of the world. It is a place where the living come to speak with the dead through a community of certified mediums and healers. The Victorian-era houses and narrow, winding streets create an atmosphere that feels frozen in time, far removed from the neon lights of the nearby theme parks. Visitors walk through the Devil's Chair, a stone bench in the local cemetery where legend says the Prince of Darkness will whisper to those who sit there at midnight. Whether you seek a reading or just a quiet moment of reflection, Casadaga offers a glimpse into the human search for what lies beyond the veil of our physical existence. 15. The Legend of the Barefoot Mailman. In the late 19th century, before the railroads and highways connected the southern coast of Florida, the mail was delivered by a group of hardy individuals known as the Barefoot Mailmen. These men walked a 60-mile route between Palm Beach and Miami, much of it along the firm sands of the Atlantic beach. They would often shed their shoes to make the walking easier, occasionally rowing small boats across the treacherous inlets. The most famous of these men was James Ed Hamilton, who disappeared in 1887 while attempting to cross the Hillsborough Inlet. His mailbag and clothes were found on the shore, but he was never seen again, presumably taken by a shark or an alligator while trying to retrieve a lost boat. His sacrifice is a legendary part of Florida history, representing the sheer grit required to tame the coastal wilderness. 14. The Muck City Tragedy of 1928. The waters of Lake Okeechobee are usually calm, but in September of 1928, they became a force of absolute devastation. A powerful hurricane pushed the lake's waters over its flimsy mud dikes, creating a massive inland surge that drowned thousands of people in the surrounding farming communities. The victims were largely migrant workers who had little warning and nowhere to go. In the aftermath, the tragedy was so immense that authorities struggled to identify the dead, leading to mass graves that are still remembered today. This event changed the face of Florida forever, prompting the federal government to build the Herbert Hoover Dike, a massive earthen wall that now encircles the lake. It was a harrowing lesson in the dangers of the Florida muck, and a reminder that the land we cultivate remains at the mercy of the great shifting waters. 13. The impossibility of Flagler's folly. Henry Flagler was a man who refused to believe in the word impossible. In the early 20th century, he embarked on his most ambitious project, the Oversea Railroad, a track that would extend from Miami all the way to Key West. Critics called it Flagler's folly, believing that building bridges across miles of open ocean was a fool's errand. For 7 years, thousands of workers battled mosquitoes, heat, and 3 devastating hurricanes to lay the steel. When the first train arrived in Key West in 1912, it was hailed as the 8th wonder of the world. Though the railroad was eventually destroyed by the Great Hurricane of 1935, its concrete spans remain as the foundation for the Overseas Highway. It stands as a monument to one man's vision and the sheer audacity required to bridge the gap between the mainland and the deep blue sea. 12. The Gangster's End at the Biltmore. The Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables is a masterpiece of Mediterranean architecture, but its history is stained by the blood of a notorious mobster. During the Prohibition era, the hotel's 13th floor was used as a lavish speakeasy where the elite rubbed elbows with the underworld. In 1929, a gambler and gangster named Thomas Fatty Walsh was shot to death during a high-stakes card game over a dispute regarding money. The murder was never officially solved, but the ghost of Fatty Walsh is said to still haunt the halls of the hotel. Guests have reported the scent of expensive cigar smoke in the elevators and the sound of phantom parties echoing from the upper floors. The Biltmore remains a place of elegance and mystery, where the glamour of the Jazz Age hides the darker secrets of Florida's history during the lawless years of the Rum Runners. 11. The Hollow Earth of the Croatian Unity. In the late 19th century, a man named Cyrus Teed brought his followers to the banks of the Estero River with a vision that turned traditional astronomy on its head. Teed, who renamed himself Koresh, claimed that the entire universe was contained within a giant hollow sphere of rock. He believed that humans lived on the inside surface of this sphere, with the sun and stars at the very center. To prove his theory, his followers built a complex wooden device called a rectilineator to measure the curvature of the Earth along the Florida coast. They established a thriving communal colony that included a printing press, a machine shop, and beautiful gardens. While the rest of the world looked up at the stars, the Croatians looked inward, convinced that they had discovered the true shape of existence within the humidity of the Florida scrub. Before moving on to story number 10, remember to subscribe and like to become an expert on the history of our wonderful country. 10. The Bloody Stand of the Ma Barker Gang. The quiet shores of Lake Weir became the stage for one of the longest and most violent shootouts in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1935. Kate Ma Barker and her son Fred had retreated to a secluded two-story house in Ocklawaha to hide from the law. When federal agents surrounded the property, a fierce 4-hour gun battle erupted, with thousands of rounds of ammunition exchanged between the outlaws and the authorities. Ma Barker was famously depicted as the ruthless matriarch of a criminal empire, though some historians now suggest her role was exaggerated by officials. When the smoke finally cleared, both Ma and Fred were found dead inside the house. The building still stands today, preserved as a chilling monument to the end of the Public Enemy era and the violent collisions of Florida's past. 9. The Primate Paradise of Monkey Island. In the middle of the Homosassa River sits a tiny palm-fringed island that is home to a most unusual set of residents, a troop of spider monkeys. This primate colony was established in the 1960s by a local developer named G.A. Ferguson, who wanted to keep the mischievous monkeys away from his visitors at a nearby attraction. He built them a miniature lighthouse and a small house, essentially creating a monkey-sized kingdom surrounded by water. The monkeys have thrived in their isolated habitat for decades, becoming a beloved local landmark for boaters and nature enthusiasts. They are fed daily by the staff of the nearby resort and have become an iconic part of the river's culture. It is a whimsical reminder that in Florida, even the most eccentric ideas can take root and become a permanent fixture of the landscape for generations. 8. The Invincible Walls of Castillo de San Marcos. The oldest masonry fort in the continental United States sits in St. Augustine, and its survival is due to a very specific and unusual geological miracle. The Castillo de San Marcos was constructed starting in 1672 using a local limestone called coquina, which is composed of compressed seashells. Unlike harder stones that would shatter when struck by cannonballs, the porous coquina acted like a giant sponge, absorbing the impact of the iron spheres and even swallowing them deep into the walls. This unique property allowed the fort to withstand numerous sieges by British forces, who were baffled to see their projectiles doing almost no damage to the structure. The fort was never taken by force in battle, standing today as a symbol of Spanish engineering and the incredible defensive properties of the natural materials found along the sandy Florida coastline. 7. The Vibrant Legacy of the Florida Highwaymen. During the era of racial segregation in the 1950s and 60s, a group of 26 African-American artists began a movement that would change the world of landscape painting. Known as the Florida Highwaymen, these self-taught creators were barred from traditional galleries, so they sold their vibrant, rapidly produced oil paintings out of the trunks of their cars along the state's highways. They captured the raw beauty of the Florida wilderness, the fiery sunsets, the swaying palms, and the brooding marshes, with a speed and energy that traditional artists found shocking. Often using inexpensive construction materials like Upson board for their canvases, they created thousands of works that brought the beauty of the state into homes across the country. Today, their paintings are highly sought after by collectors, and the artists are celebrated for their entrepreneurial spirit and their enduring contribution to American art history. 6. The humorous departures of Key West Cemetery. The Key West Cemetery is a place where the quirky spirit of the island continues even after death. Founded in 1847 after a hurricane washed away the previous burial ground, this site is famous for its unique and often humorous epitaphs. Perhaps the most well-known grave belongs to B.P. Pearl Roberts, which famously bears the inscription, "I told you I was sick." Another headstone reads, "At least I know where he is sleeping tonight." These tombstone messages reflect the island's laid-back attitude and its refusal to take even the end of life too seriously. The cemetery is also home to a monument for the sailors who died on the United States battleship Maine. Walking through these rows of whitewashed tombs feels like a stroll through a history book where the characters still have a lot of personality left to share. 5. The giant leap from the Space Coast. On a humid morning in July of 1969, the eyes of the entire world were fixed on a small strip of land in Brevard County. Cape Canaveral served as the launching pad for the Apollo 11 mission, the historic journey that would put the first humans on the moon. The roar of the Saturn V rocket was so immense that it could be felt miles away, rattling windows and shaking the ground as it defied gravity. This event transformed Florida from a mostly agricultural and tourist destination into a global hub for science and technology. The Space Coast became a place where the future was built, and the legacy of that mission still resonates in the massive hangars and launch pads that dot the landscape. It remains a crowning achievement of human ingenuity, launched from the very edge of the Florida wilderness. 4. The prehistoric depths of Devil's Millhopper. In the middle of Gainesville lies a massive geological anomaly known as the Devil's Millhopper. This miniature rainforest is contained within a giant sinkhole that drops 120 feet down into the earth. Legend says that the sinkhole was created by the devil himself to trap souls, but geologists know it was formed by the collapse of an underground cavern. As you descend the long wooden staircase to the bottom, the temperature drops significantly, and the sound of the modern world fades away, replaced by the trickle of small waterfalls. Fossilized remains of sharks, mastodons, and other ancient creatures have been found in the layers of rock, providing a window into Florida's deep past. It is a lush, quiet sanctuary that reminds us of the hidden worlds that exist right beneath our feet in the porous limestone foundation of the state. 3. The dark legend of Ed Watson. The 10,000 Islands area was once the hiding place for one of Florida's most notorious outlaws, Edgar "Ed" Watson. A man of immense physical strength and a violent reputation, Watson established a successful sugarcane plantation on the remote Chatham River. However, he was plagued by rumors that he killed his seasonal workers rather than paying them their wages. In 1910, after the discovery of several bodies in the river, the citizens of Chokoloskee grew tired of the fear he instilled. When Watson returned to town during a storm to confront his neighbors, he was met by a group of armed men. In a chaotic standoff on the beach, Watson was shot and killed by a volley of gunfire from the townspeople. His story has since become a staple of Florida folklore, symbolizing the lawless and brutal nature of the early frontier. 2. The submerged peace of Christ of the Abyss. Beneath the crystalline waters of the John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park in Key Largo stands a silent bronze guardian. The Christ of the Abyss is an 8.5-foot tall statue that rests on the sea floor, its arms outstretched in a gesture of peace and welcome toward the surface. It was a gift from an Italian scuba diver and was lowered into the water in 1965. Over the decades, the statue has become encrusted with fire coral and surrounded by schools of colorful tropical fish, making it one of the most famous underwater sites in the world. For many, it is a spiritual site of reflection, while for others, it is a testament to the beauty of the Florida Keys marine environment. It serves as a bridge between the world of the sun and the silent blue world of the Atlantic. 1. The eternal flame of the unconquered Seminoles. The story of the Seminole tribe of Florida is one of the most remarkable tales of resilience in human history. During the mid-19th century, the United States government fought 3 separate wars to remove the Seminoles from their ancestral lands. While many were forced to move west, a small group of around 200 individuals retreated deep into the impenetrable heart of the Everglades. They survived in the harsh, watery wilderness, adapting their lifestyle to the swamps and refusing to surrender. surrender. Today, the Seminole tribe is the only tribe in America that never signed a peace treaty with the federal government, earning them the title of the Unconquered. They have transformed from a small group of survivors into a powerful and prosperous sovereign nation. Their presence is a living connection to the ancient spirit of Florida, proving that courage and determination can overcome even the greatest odds. After watching these 33 stories about Florida, tell us, did you know any of them? Which one did you like best? Or which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Let's see how many of us share the same story. And if you think we've missed something or want to add something, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback helps us improve each video. Also, if you noticed any pronunciation mistakes, thank you for your patience. We strive to improve with every video, and speaking of videos, there's another one playing right now so you can continue exploring the history of our beautiful country. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and like so we can keep learning together. See you in the next one.